Well, there's a pay rise to a lot of the executives and the higher echelons are an absolute disgrace in the current situation. We see what the bankers, 1.2, 1.3 million plus bonuses, 850,000 plus bonuses. That's an absolute a disgraceful situation when you have, but particularly the low-income public service workers who are being hit big time by this. I've met with them today in Tralee. I've had people on the phone to me that are on dire straits. They were dependent upon the 4,000 or 5,000 euro a year extra in order to have some type of a family life, and now that is gone. So the situation is quite dire out there. There's an awful lot of anger with the government and the way they have handled the situation regarding nationalising what are effectively the bank debts. And the way that they are treating people who are having difficulty trying to make payments for mortgages and so forth. So you have a whole raft of problems out there.
Okay, well, we're talking about the bailing out of the banks. So obviously you have perhaps some objections to it. Do you think any conditions should be attached to the bailout of the banks, such as cap on executive pay or an investigation into any misconduct which led to the situation we're in today?
There has to be an investigation into what happened, and there has to be accountability into what happened. And what we don't want to see swept under the carpet, as I know the political establishment would like to see happening in this state, to wipe it all under the carpet, so there's no accountability and no traceability of who was involved and who influenced what was happening. In actual fact, what has happened amounts to treason against the people. The taxpayers are having to bail out big financial institutions, where developers walk away scot-free from incurring huge debts, driving the price of land and the price of houses way beyond people's means. We have a situation, if the banks have any sincerity now, they should revalue their mortgages. Where people have been caught for 250,000 and 300,000 euro mortgages, effectively their houses are now what they call negative equity. So they should revalue those mortgages and mortgage them according to what their current value is, not what was inflated by developers and by reckless trading by the bankers.
Okay, and can the public, can we foresee any investigation going into these practices? Will Sinn Fein as a party be pushing for investigations?
Absolutely. We're on the record, and we will continuously be on the record and pushing for an investigation into how these people were allowed to gamble and with people's savings and people's money, and that's what they've done, and how they were able to abuse the vulnerability of ordinary people, working class people, and that's what they have done. And the government and the regulator that allowed that to happen. Effectively, what we have in the situation, a country that's practically broke as a result of terrible management by successive government, disgraceful management by successful government. They were too cosy in their relationship with the banking institutions, too cosy in their relationship with developers, and effectively people want to see what happened here and who was responsible, and they brought to justice as a result of that.
Okay, and I don't think it's gone forward yet, but there is some kind of proposal that we may be asked to pay rates or some kind of tax on our homes. How would you feel about that, or even like the situation that's led up to so many people by necessity having to own their own homes because of the reduction in housing stock by local authorities?
Well, yes, and again, at the moment you have, I think, 207 units empty in this country. You have 59,000 people on the local authority housing list. You have a situation where people have, an awful lot of young couples have huge mortgages. When they had the double income families, they were struggling to meet. Now one or maybe more have lost their jobs. The banks are in the process of repossessing what they give them money to buy in the first place. So it's a very painful situation for an awful lot of people out there. What is needed is effectively the government governing for the people as they should be, not governing for the developers or the bankers and the big institutions, but governing for the people and protecting the citizens' rights and entitlements. So I hope that we certainly will do our best in Leinster House and in every chamber, with local authorities, or wherever are in the European Union, everywhere we have elected representatives, we will highlight these issues. We will try to press the government to address these issues, to protect the rights and entitlements and the justice for our citizens. We will not be found wanting in that regard.
Okay, Padraig MacLochlainn, have you anything to add to that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, as Martin has said, what happened here was that our government allowed a situation where the bankers and large developers essentially lent money recklessly across the board, speculated across the board, drove up the cost of land and housing across the state. And if you listen to Brian Cowan or Mary Coughlin or Brian Lennon, you would think that, you know, this was nothing to do with them whatsoever. When I recall back in the general election of 2007, the promises made by the Fianna Fáil government, I remember them attacking Sinn Féin's policies and saying that the people remember the 1980s. People remember the emigration of the 1980s and the hardship that we had, and they're not going to vote for Sinn Féin to have that again. Well, that's what they've delivered. They have delivered the 1980s, but it's even worse now because people are up to their eyes in debt and they can't emigrate because we have a situation in Britain or Australia, where basically the opportunity isn't there like it was in the past to emigrate. So there's no escape door here. I mean, I think what we're seeing is profound anger across the board. We're seeing a situation where a small group of people have recklessly thrown in the fortunes of future generations. And as Martin has said, I mean, we in Sinn Féin will be looking to remind people of where the state commenced, 1916 proclamation, the first Dáil of 1919. And you have to ask yourself, you know, when you think of Padraig Pearse and James Connolly and Constance Markievicz, where did it all go wrong? How do we allow people to steal our oil and gas off our coast? How do we allow bankers and developers to basically steal the hope of future generations? So it's a time of big ideas and big decisions in this country, and Sinn Féin will certainly play our part in that.
And I know as Sinn Féin, you have big ideas because you have that new report that you've done, The West's Awake. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, Martin is about to launch the Agriculture and Fisheries report, which is, I suppose, like the sister report. Hopefully it'll be endorsed by the Oireachtas Committee soon, and Martin will speak to that now in a second. But in terms of Pearse Doherty's report, The Awakening in the West, both of them under the West Awake banner, I mean, they're fantastic efforts. I mean, Martin and Pearse travelled up and down the west coast of Ireland, meeting with groups on the ground. This has never happened before. Usually these reports are, done up by researchers in Leinster House, getting the census figures and the CSO statistics and putting it together from a distance. But the special thing about these reports was it belongs to chambers of commerce, trade unions, farming organisations, fishing organisations, community development groups along the coast. The recommendations, are our contribution to what needs to happen. The West has been neglected. The West was left behind when we had the boom years, and that's all they were, was a boom year. We didn't invest in infrastructure to catch up. So, I mean, I'm very proud of those reports, and I suppose Martin will want to speak now to his own.
Yeah, Martin Ferris.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of effort put into it, and again, it's just these reports belong to the people that contributed to them, and it is from a bottoms-up approach here that we try to travel throughout the west of Ireland, identify all the major problems that was existing, the inequality that existed between the west and the east coast. We also made contact, I said, practically every organisation going. But I think I was just this week. I was doing a public meeting. There was other elected representatives there, and just the day the figures came out, the latest CEO figures regarding unemployment. Now, when we were doing the report, the unemployment in Donegal and Kerry was almost twice the national average. When we were doing the report, at that time, I think the national average would have been around maybe 6.5%, and they were running 12 and 13%. Now we're almost 3 times the national average. In Kerry, 24% of the live register are now unemployed, 24%, and we are, I think, around 9 or coming up on 9% is the national average. So that is in itself highlights, and that's mirrored all along the coast, the western coast, and that in itself tells me, and it tells anybody that is prepared to look at it objectively, that there is inequality here. There is institutionalised inequality because they know what's going on, the governments know what's going on, the major departments know what's going on, the top civil servants know what's going on. They didn't give a goddamn about the West of Ireland, and they have never given a goddamn account to the West of Ireland. I go back to the day they went into the EEC at the time, and they went ahead and they sold out the fishermen's rights all along this coast, one of the greatest natural resources that we had. And they compromised and sold that out, and they've continued to neglect and to suck the life out of the West of Ireland. And effectively, if nothing ever comes out of these reports, we'll do our best to make sure that they're going to become policy. But if at least it's there in black and white for anybody who wants to see the discrimination that's in existence in this country by our governments, successive governments, towards the people in the peripheral regions.
The other point today, listening to the radio, driving over here today, and they were talking about the commuter belt, the Meaves and the Kildares, and the unemployment becoming very, very high. Absolutely incredible when you think of it. They didn't focus at all on Donegal and Kerry, where there's 1 in 4 people unemployed in those counties, and it has always had unemployment. So when you see a situation where unemployment is doubling in Kerry and Donegal, where you had traditionally high unemployment, it is an absolute crisis. But their focus is on Dublin and the commuter belt. That's where the national media's attention is, and there's just no sense of the West of Ireland. When we raise our voices and we fight for something, we're accused of crying and whinging. When we ask for a rail corridor, we have to say that it has to be economically viable for 200 million. Now they're talking about a metro in Dublin, 3.4 billion, which is what, you do the sums in that, I think it's something like 6-7 times the cost of what we've suggested. It's just unbelievable what you're up against.
Well, is there any of the suggestions in either of your reports that you'd like to highlight now?
Well, I think the big thing in the report is in my report is the crisis that's existing in our agricultural and fishing communities, and the declining standards of living. I think the average income in the farming community would be around 16,000 euro a year for a family in this day and age, and that is scandalous. And another thing is this coming right across is rural isolation. People living in rural areas, they feel totally isolated. They can't even go for a pint. If they go for a pint, they have to get a taxi and get a taxi home, and they're living on the margins. The local post offices are gone, the small shop is gone, the local shops are gone. You will not exist in rural Ireland without a car, no public transport. And here we have a situation where people isolation has become more and more prevalent as time goes on. So there's a huge, what you need is a positive discriminated approach towards addressing the problems that are out there. And if they go, every department, not just one department, it should involve every department in the government, be proactively trying to pursue a mechanism and means of addressing the wrongs of the past, and try and bring that life and that vibrancy back into the west and the west of our country. And it can be done if the political will is there, and that's the point we're trying to make. Thank you.
Okay, Martin Ferris, Padraig MacLochlainn, Trying Times Ahead. Thank you for speaking to me on Rinse FM.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.